off-color language, but a lot of times that's what's happening. The more of a problem was actually the staff who used that language. All right, let me stand back here so I can. Manhood, power, cool, respect, and the ways of the badass is one of those words. That's actually the chapter in a textbook, The Ways of the Badass, where a professor talks about how do you socially construct an image of being the tough guy. This is very important because if you take anything away from this presentation, it's to recognize that no one is born a gang member. It may seem like it because in Los Angeles we have kids 5 years old dressed in blue and calling themselves Crips. And yet they still were not born that way. In order to be a tough guy, a gang member, I have to put on the identity of that gang member. Just as you have to put on the identity of a social work professional. You socially construct that. Adolescence is a time when there is a search for identity. Culture and ethnicity exert powerful influences on the perceptions of available options for the attainment of manhood. The previous presentation addressed this issue. What are the available options? This presentation looks at folklore as one of these influences. Larger-than-life characters offer profiles of rebellion and power for youngsters who wish to construct gang identities. Social workers deal with the person in the environment. We are people that look at not only the individual and the family, but the community as well as the policy structure as well. And so when we think about working with youth, part of that context, the broader context, is the history of that group or culture. And in the African American community in the States, as well as other cultures around the world, there are sort of icons that are held up as models for manhood. The challenge of adolescence. You know who this is, right? Most of you have read Erik Erikson. And the challenge of adolescence is identity versus identity diffusion. Adolescence is based on human development and varies across individuals. It is a stormy period characterized by hormonal changes. Anybody here ever have a child? And some of you are too young yet, but anybody have teenage children? You know about this stormy period of time. It's accompanied by hormonal changes. A lot of us get concerned about those. Growth spurts, psychological changes, and enhancements of intellectual and motor skills. Begins with puberty, which typically commences at the age of 12 or 13, but may start earlier. How long does puberty last now?
About a week.
Some people say 25. You know, it used to be that there was no teen pregnancy. Why not?
Because there was no teen.
No teen. They were married when they were 12 or 13. We've taken this period between, you know, the time when people reach sort of sexual maturity, and then we've had this long period where you're supposed to be waiting. And then you get to 25 now, you're supposed to be adults. A lot of the women I know say adolescence lasts for men up until 50 or 55. Maybe not even till then, you know, maybe beyond. It's kind of interesting when you talk about youth who have problems, that self-report studies suggest that the number of youth who break the law is much greater than the official statistics. So certain youth tend to be more likely to be incarcerated or come before the authorities. In another part of our presentation, we talk about the whole notion of boys will be boys, you know, and who gets to be as boys will be boys. Some information is taken from Katz's book, Jack Katz, The Seduction of Crime. And this is the author, by the way, that has a chapter on the ways of the badass. Interesting book because he's an ethnomethodologist. Anybody know what an ethnomethodologist is in terms of research? Participant observation. They actually have ethnomethodologists that actually enroll in social work schools not to get the degree, but to study how social workers are socialized into the profession. So they're looking at what's really going on. One observation that CAS makes is that we see a robbery, and we see that they actually shoot the person being robbed. And we ask ourselves, why did they kill the store owner when he wasn't even doing anything but giving them the money? Well, one of the explanations is, I killed the store owner, I don't really care about him. I'm letting my partner know that when we get ready to divide up the money, that you don't mess with me. So we're not even considering what's really going on when people are doing what they're doing. And what does it mean to be a man? What does it mean to be a man? Manhood. Standing tall. How do you know when you're a man? It's kind of interesting. Women talk more about being women to each other than we men talk to each other about being men. Women are more, we're at a disadvantage because we don't communicate as well. But achieving manhood is something that's on our mind, and we have certain ideas about it that, really don't tell the whole story. Another book that really changed my life was Berger and Luckman's The Social Construction of Reality. The sociology of knowledge must analyze the processes through which this occurs. What this is really saying is, how do we go about developing understanding in our world? We label things, we develop rules and guidelines, and yet some other culture may put things together altogether differently. How do we construct our reality? One thing becomes clear is that if you talk to young kids who are gang identified, and you notice I use the term gang identified rather than gang member, because I'm suggesting that they're identifying themselves as gang members, you will find that they have talked about how they can begin to identify myself as a Crip. They even had a Crip walk, and then they wear the blue. And then they do all kinds of things. Now, in an institution, staff try to take away some of that stuff. We say, okay, you can't wear blue in the institution. Then they start tying their shoestrings a certain way. You never catch up with that. They stay ahead all the time. Knowledge is the certainty that phenomena are real and that they possess specific characteristics. The man or woman on the street inhabits a world that is real to him or her, albeit in different degrees, and he or she knows with different degrees of confidence that this world possesses such and such characteristics. What is reality? The fundamental question is, again, what is real and how do we know? Interesting thing, when people are pontificating and holding forth on their knowledge, sometimes you can just simply say, hey, how do you know? And that hangs a lot of people up. Well, somebody told me, I read it in a book. I had one professor said that 60% of the research over in the library is fiction. But it's worth being critical about what we read and see. Perspectives are not conceptions, and I'll talk about that a little bit more. They influence what we see. They are the eyeglasses we put on to see. Perspectives change from situation to situation, often many times during the same day. This story brought that home to me. There was a land that was very dry, and people had to travel across the desert from one city to the other. But in the middle of that journey, there was a well. And so, when people began the journey from one city to the other, people would say, be sure to stop at that nourishing, life-sustaining well along the way. Years went by, and then, unfortunately, one night, someone fell in that well, and they drowned. So, from then on, people warned the travelers, beware of the evil well along the way, and make sure that you do not fall in and drown. Some time went on again, and they found out that the man that fell in the well and drowned was a thief. So then people said, be sure to stop by and honor the justice dispensing well along the way. Now you see what I'm saying about perception? It changes depending on what's been going on. This is kind of interesting. When we did our training, we talked about definitions of gangs. And I will tell you, every textbook you read will have a different definition of what a gang is. Most of the definitions of gangs could be the local Kiwanis Club or the local Board of Education. If you think about it, the definitions. Pardon? A youth gang, this is one of the ones that I use. It's not the last word on gangs, but look at it. A youth gang is commonly thought of as a self-formed association of peers, having the following characteristics: a gang name, recognizable symbols, identifying leadership, a geographic territory, a regular meeting pattern, and collective actions to carry out illegal activities. It could be that last line that really maybe distinguishes a gang member from a Kiwanis Club member, but maybe not.
That is true.
The other thing I like here is this word, they say they have a regular meeting patterns, you know. And I always thought, man, yeah, the gang members, they get together between 2 and 3 on Saturday, and they say, hey, you take minutes, you know. Yeah, can you help me with this one, man? Get this thing going. You see the title here? It's Tough Guys. You see how the guys is spelled?
Yes.
That again is making a reference to putting on this tough guys, this tough guy image. It's a guise that I wear in order to present myself in a certain way.
Never show weakness. Only pain you make, the pain you inflict.
It's the roughest and toughest show on TV. The American Gladiator. Shout out, tough people. When you get down there, it's been all minute down there.
Police say boys aged 13 and 11 were arrested near the school carrying guns and wearing camouflage.
3 million American women are battered in their homes every year. More than 4,000.
I have spoken.
Who are you?
Well, I am the great and powerful Wizard of Oz.
You're a very bad man.
Oh, no, my dear. I'm a very good man. I'm just a very bad wizard.
The climactic scene where Toto pulls back the curtain to reveal a nervous, tragic man pretending to be the great and powerful Oz represents more than just a classic moment in American cinematic history. Rather, it also gave us a metaphor for looking at masculinity in a new way, not as a fixed, inevitable state of being, but rather as a projection, a pose, a guise, an act, a mask that men often wear to shield our vulnerability and hide our humanity. This mask can take a lot of forms, but one that's really important to look at in our culture at the millennium is what I call the tough guise. The front that so many men put up that's based on an extreme notion of masculinity that emphasizes toughness and physical strength and gaining the respect and admiration of others through violence or the implicit threat of it. Boys and young men learn early on that being a so-called real man means you have to take on this tough guise. In other words, you have to show the world only certain parts of yourself that the dominant culture has defined as manly. You can find out what those qualities are if you just listen to young men themselves.
A real man is physical.
Strong, independent, is powerful.
Physical.
Intimidating, strong, independent,
In control. Rugged.
scarce, powerful, respected,
Hard.
a stud.
Athletic.
He's muscular. A real man is tough.
Tough.
And just as most young men know what our culture expects of a so-called real man, they also know very well what you get called if you don't measure up.
You get called a pussy, a bitch.
He's a fag. Queer.
Soft. You're a little mama's boy. Emotional, girly,
He's a wimp.
bitch, queer. You get called weak, wuss, sissy, fag, a fag. Fag. You're a fag.
So for boys, and this is true for every racial and ethnic background, and every socioeconomic group, to be a real man, to be tough, strong, independent, respected, means fitting into this narrow box that defines manhood. The terms that are the opposite of that, wuss, wimp, fag, sissy, are insults that are used to keep boys boxed in. So if you're a boy, it's pretty clear there's a lot of pressure on you to conform, to put up the act, to be just one of the guys.
I wish I could show you more of this. By the way, if you want to see various versions of this video, you can go on YouTube, and it's called Tough Guys. You saw what the guys said when they talk about what are the characteristics of when you're not a real man? You heard those terms they use? Part of what we grow up with is, in order to be a real man, it's not to be a girl, not to be feminine. I played American football in high school. Anybody that's played American football knows that American football hurts. It is painful. I remember when I dreaded going to practice. I can remember the day it clicked for me when I began to think, I can't wait to get out and hit today. I mean, I crossed over into that feeling. But here's what the coach would do. The coach would take two of us, and he'd show me how to block that guy. The coach would show me how to block. And so I would say, hey, I got this down now. Boom. And then the coach would go show the other guy how to counter the block. Now it's a different game. So then the coach would say, okay, Nunn, get down. Okay, he said, blow the whistle, I want you to both hit. And so we both come off the blocks. We don't hit too hard, you know. And the coach says, hey, guys. He said, look, girls, let's see some real hitting. Guess how I came off the block the next time? Yeah, I really came off and fired off and really hit hard because he had threatened my already weakly constructed manhood at that point in time in my life. So what's suggested here is that in addition to media images that influence the tough guy image, we also consider mythological heroes or figures that provide role models for socially constructing the image of the badass. All right, in African American folklore, there is a long tradition of tales about the bad nigga. Not crazy about that word, but like it better when it has the AH at the end than an ER. A line from, anybody know John Henry? You know the myth of John Henry? A line from John Henry proclaims, in response to the arrival on the scene of the captain's steam drill, John Henry was driving tunnels for the railroad. And he was a man, you know, John Henry, he could hammer, he could whistle, he could sing. Picked up a hammer early in the morning just to hear his hammer ring, Lord, Lord. And so, John Henry was driving into the mountain. But when the captain brought down the steam drill, he said, you know, I'm gonna bring a steam drill around. In other words, we're gonna put you out of business. Say, John Henry looked at the boss man and said, a man ain't nothing but a man. Before I let this thing beat me down to the bottom, I'll die with this hammer, Lord, Lord. I'll die with this hammer, Lord, Lord. It goes on to say, John Henry drove into the mountain. His hammer was striking fire. He drove so hard, he broke his poor heart. He laid down his hammer and he died, Lord, Lord. He laid down his hammer and he died. Now, I have heard gang identified people say, hey man, you know, it's do or die for me, man. Do or die. Because for a man, I'm willing to do or die. Secondly, you guys are too young to remember the song. The night was clear, the moon was yellow. I see you nodding your head. The leaves came tumbling down. I was standing on the corner when I heard my bulldog bark. He was barking at the two men who were gambling in the dark. This is Stagger Lee and Billy. The sad part was, back in 32, when times was hard, Stag had 245s in the marked deck of cards. So as this folk tale plays out, Stagger Lee ends up going to the ballroom and he loses his money to Billy. He winds up killing him. Secondly, he shot Billy. He shot that poor boy so bad, the bullets went through Billy, broke the bartender's wife. Dolomite. Some folks say that Willie Green was the baddest MF the world has seen. Well, I'll tell you about this bad MF called Dolomite, a young rapping, stamping fellow from the day he was born. Rebellion, pushing against. Nothing can control me. I think one of Bob Marley's songs says, "Bars could not hold me," or something like that. I am beyond. Jared Moore, Honky Tonk Buzz and Hit Cat stood digging a game of pool. Though his pockets were sagging, Bud wasn't bragging because he knew he was looking real cool. Young men in here, I'm just curious. Anybody in here spend any time trying to look cool? Come on, man. Let me talk to me, man.
Yes, we have.
See, man, this is what happens. See, if I was talking to women about something like this, and they would have had their hands up. I was teaching at UCLA, man. You ask a question, the men get quiet, man. No. Now they got to be that bit. They go outside and say, "Hey, yo, man, you what this good dude said, man?" So. You know. I spent time as a young man trying to look what I thought was cool. Because I dropped my shoulder. You know, I stood in front of the mirror, you know. See, you guys are talking about it, man, but you know. we learned to point. We didn't just point like this, you know. You just say, "Hey, man." You say, "Hey, yo, man, what's up, man?" You know. Now, I wish I could tell you about Shine, but I can't say Shine because it really they drive me out of here because of the language of Shine. The Shine was down in the boiler room on the Titanic when it started to go down. And he runs up to the top of the deck and yells at the captain, "Captain, there's water down below." He said, "Jump back, Shine." Shine's black. "Jump back, Shine. I got 52 pumps to keep that water down." And it goes on and on. So let me see if I can say something.
Acceptable language.
All right. We already heard the word out, so. All right, the way it goes is, the sky was cloudy, the air was cool. The Shine shagged ass for Liverpool. He jumped in the water and started to swim and noticed two big sharks were after him. One said, "My country 'tis of thee." The other said, "Bring your black blank to me." Shine said, "In my blank is a hellified taste. From here to shore gonna be one hellified race." And then Shine did something no man had ever done. He jumped up on the water. He started to run. He said, "I'll swim with St. Peter. I'll swim with St. Paul. I'll be a swimming blankety blank when the roll is called." Now, what does that say about manhood? I can overcome. Shine is in the boiler room. Understand? He's not an important man on the ship. Under those conditions, he becomes and his manhood takes over. And he becomes strong. Little A. John. I'm not going to tell it because of time. You'd like Little A. John, but Little A. John was the guy that when the master told him to go out in the woods and they cut out the tree, he came back with a log under each arm. I guess I am going to tell it, huh? So then the master told Little A. John, he said, "Hey, John, go ahead and bring those two bulls in from the pasture." He came back carrying the bull. So the master said to Little A. John, he said, "Little A. John, I bet you could go get the devil." So the next thing you know, a master go out and he's got the devil laying on his porch. So years go by and Little A. John dies. And he goes down to, down below. And he's walking down the road and he comes to the devil's house. The devil's wife runs out with a pail of coal and says, "Hey, you go start a hell of your own." Understand, this comes from a people who are living under oppression and under the yoke. And this is how they began to identify and say, "I can still be a man because I've got this larger-than-life folk hero that I can follow." By the way, I've had kids coming into the probation camp. I was a probation officer before I was at the university. I have kids coming in talking about some of these stories. Bad Leroy Brown, you know this one? Baddest cat in the whole darn town. Badder than an old King Kong, meaner than a junkyard dog. John Magruder and the boss man's wife. We'll stay away from that. You don't tug on Superman's cape. You don't spit in the wind. You don't pull the mask off the old Lone Ranger. but you don't mess around with Jim right here.
That's you don't mess with me.
Big boy. By the way, I don't really know these, but rather than me reading all this, any of you know this character in Jamaican?
Oh yeah.
Tell me a couple of things about him. A trickster, clever. Clever. You notice how clever translates into hustler in our common day language? So, anything else about him?
Really lazy.
Can you speak a little louder, please?
I mean, when you listen to the story, people often get inspired and, and I saw the spider, but he wasn't afraid of it.
She's not afraid. No. Yeah. Not being afraid is huge for men. We don't like to be vulnerable. I had an opportunity to take some young men up to San Quentin, which is the big prison in the States. Very, very hardcore. And this was like a scared straight program. And so we were supposed to go over 3 Saturdays. So we went the first time. You walk in San Quentin, you feel San Quentin. You don't need to look around. Everything in my body said, man, get out of here. I'm serious. Hadn't seen anything like that, even though I had worked in corrections. So we're dealing with these guys in the Squires program, quote unquote hardcore, many other men for murder. And so we come back to the camp and we're going to go for the second session. So I see one of the young men working down in the dining hall. I said, hey man, you ready to go next weekend? He said, Nunn, he said, I got a furlough next weekend, man. I don't think I'm going to be able to make it. So I said to him, man, look, man, are you scared? He said, no, man, I wasn't scared. And excuse my language, but I leaned over to him and I said, I want you to know something, man, it scared the fuck out of me. And guess what? I said, you weren't scared at all? He said, a little bit. So that issue of fear, I'm glad you brought that up. It's very key. How about Papa Boy? Why? Yeah, my French is not too good. Anybody know this one?
Yeah.
Appears in different forms, a shapeshifter. What kind of power is involved in that? How about this one? Anyone know this one? Yeah, okay. All right, I lost my spot. If you do that, is I'm not so tough. The badass is an alien, someone outside of the expected day-to-day polite discourse. Respectable conventions are ignored. The message is, I'm not here for you. In other words, you're in my world. I'm not in your world. I'm outside of your world. I'm in control.
Oh, you don't have it set like that, you know. Let's use the down arrow.
Yeah.
Use the down arrow.
Yeah, correct. Correct.
A couple more slides. This is a quote from Dr. Katz on John Allen, who he described as a young black man from D.C. who became a professional stick-up man, recalling his first commitment to detention. I learned a lot of things. Maybe I'll try to see if I can get a little bit about his language. I learned a lot of things. As a kid, you pay so much attention to how a dude's supposed to be a bad nigga. He really having his way around the joints with counselors and everybody. So you want to be like him, and act like him, and talk like him. I think that down there I must have changed my voice about 100 times because I had a high-pitched voice, and I was bothered by being small. and I changed my walk from super cool to ultra cool. Now, what was really essential, and we don't have the time here, it's important that you know that we followed up this presentation with training on practice interventions. And the two practice interventions that we taught were ethnographic interviewing and motivational interviewing. Both of them begin with open-ended questions. Now, with ethnographic interviewing, now see, I've gotten so old, you know, but there used to be a T. Columbo. Anybody remember Columbo on television? You remember how he dealt with questions, man, when he come onto the scene? He'd say, I'm kind of confused here. I don't understand what's going on.
Yeah.
I always say, you know, the best place to start is I don't know. It's really tricky for after all the education we get, we're supposed to be experts, you know? But I don't know anything about your life. So I don't know is a good place to start. And so a global question is simply a way of sort of getting into the other person's world because I'm suggesting that they are experts on their world, not me. I don't know what it's like to be a Crip. I know what it's like to be a Boy Scout, but I wasn't a Crip. So, and my friend here was, Navri Ray was really good at this. I used to listen to him, man. He would say, sometimes you guys say so and so and so and so. What does that mean? Well, I would ask guys stuff, and I'd say, hey, man, what's so and so? He said, man, you don't know that? I said, no, man, I'm as square as shit. I'm so square I can wear a shoebox for a hat, man. I don't know what's going on. And then they will tell you. But putting myself in the position of listening to you, tell me what your world is like. And in motivational interviewing, the one that I really like, it's all important, the one on affirmations. Hey man, I like what you just said, man. It's amazing how far that goes with a young person. When you say, you give them some positives, because they come in and talk to you, you're in a position of authority. We often don't realize how we look to the other. So, when you give out the positives, it makes a difference. Social workers, we like to see ourselves as helpers and people who do good, etc. But I used to say much to my students, if you're walking up the walkway and you see the blinds closed and the lights go out, they're not saying, oh boy, here comes the social worker. So it's important to recognize that the power that we carry. Again, I'm sorry for trying to rush and push through this, but thank you very much for your attention, and I enjoyed talking with you.